Writers, hello, this is Carter, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up, my little podcast where I sit down with authors. I get to meet a lot of cool people. We get to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about, usually writing, no surprise. No scripted questions, nothing prepared in advance, just two people chatting about the world of published writing and how it affects us and how we navigate through it. And things that we like and things that we struggle with. And today's episode, which I'll get to in just a second, we went kind of heavy into the actual publishing aspect of it and dealing with publishing houses and taking feedback and understanding, what long-term commitments you're making to one another. So it was pretty fascinating to dig into the actual publishing side of things because we don't talk about that a whole lot. So it was great. And before I get to today's guest, just a note, Unbound Writer, that's the company I founded several years ago. We've got a retreat coming up next year in Paris with myself, Alex Finlay, and Clemence Michelon, along with a guest appearance by Riley Sager. If you're interested in that kind of thing, we're getting close to being sold out, so check it out at my site, unboundwriter.com. And if you're just looking for one-on-one coaching with me, that is the core business of what I do at Unbound Writer. So again, go to unboundwriter.com if you're interested. Look at all the offerings that I have on there, and you can set up a free 20-minute Zoom call with me where we can just kind of get to know each other, see what your issues are, see if we might be a good fit in working together. So zero risk. I highly recommend you check it out if you are looking for a little bit of help with your writing, with your writer psychology, with advice on social media and publishing and all that kind of stuff. I help with all of those things. All right, today on the show, I had Steve Cavanagh. So you've probably heard of Steve Cavanagh. He's a multi-million copy bestseller, many books, some series books, some standalones, but he's the author of the Eddie Flynn novels. And I think he said coming up on his third standalone novel. He's in Northern Ireland, so he has publications both in the US and the UK and Northern Ireland. So a book might come out there that he is then promoting for further release here. But I will say his latest book that he's promoting is One of Us is Guilty. I think it's out in the UK right now, and he's on tour, but I don't think it comes out in the US until next year. Anyway, you figure it the fuck out. You can go to his website, you can go to Amazon, you can go anywhere, a number of places, and check out all his books and see when they might be available in your area. But we had a fantastic conversation. I met him briefly at the Hamptons Whodunit a couple of years ago and asked him to be on the show. And his journey is fascinating. He's another recovered lawyer. We seem to have a lot of those on the show, and a former lawyer. And he is now pumping out books, and he has been highly successful. He's one of those rare cases where the first novel he wrote did take off, did get published, but he had written a couple screenplays prior to that didn't go anywhere, but taught him something about writing because he's not coming from a writer's background, just like myself. But he's somebody who's experienced great success with his books, but it's also, as we get into our conversation about working with publishers, it has a lot to do with learning from the publisher, communicating with the publisher. And he underscored that several times, the importance of that, and really understanding, hey, what is our long-term plan here together? Let's not just write a book and hope for the best. Let's figure out what's a good trajectory for both of us on this journey together. So he's very thoughtful about the business aspect of things. It was a fantastic conversation. I loved what we did with a little storytelling at the end, which was lifted from Harlan Coben's The Woods. You're going to like this one, friends. This is my conversation with Steve Cavanagh. So you're in Northern Ireland right now?
I am, yeah. I'm in the countryside, about half an hour from Belfast.
Okay. And no representation in the World Cup this year, I don't think.
No, Northern Ireland aren't in the World Cup this year. We rarely get to the World Cup. So I would normally support Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland, but the whole of Ireland unites in the hope that England get beaten.
I
So
think they play today, actually.
they're playing later tonight, and I josh at that. I actually do hope they do well, and I hope Scotland manage to get through as well. So yeah, we will be cheering them on.
Well, Scotland has been
Regretfully,
wholly embraced by the city of Boston.
yes, I wonder why. May well be that they're spending lots of money in pubs. There's also, I saw, there's Scottish fans who are embracing a small grocery store, a liquor store called Joby Liquor, Jobi, and then Liquor.
Okay.
Um, but have you seen this?
I have not.
Basically, the whole of Scotland have had their picture taken outside the store, because jobby is a slang term for a shit. So jobby liquor, everyone is outside,
It's the
you
greatest
know,
thing ever for them.
it's the best thing ever. So all of Scotland is, they're not worried about the football. They're all going to this guy's liquor store.
I'm sure the guy doesn't have a problem with that. I'm sure they're
I know
buying them
he's
out.
quite happy about it.
So I'm curious. So you're born and raised Northern Ireland, I assume.
Yes.
You still have family. Are you close to lots of relatives and things like that?
Yeah, I still have relatives here, and my family's. I live here with my family, my wife and kids. So yeah, I've very much ties here. I've no aspirations to move anywhere else.
And then growing up there, were you a creative kid? Was this, I mean, I'm always, so I see that you're a recovered lawyer, which is
Yes.
very, very common. Again, I've done 250, 300 of these interviews, lots of former lawyers that I talked to. Um, but and what I find evidence a lot is creative kids who had at least some kind of practical sense of making a living and then realizing they wanted to go back to the creativity. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Oh God, I'm not sure I was creative at all, really.
Uh-huh.
Um, I I um I liked reading. I started in comics and then I moved on to books. So I loved reading, and my mum read. But I came from a real, working class Belfast background. So there wasn't a whole lot of creativity, around really. Apart from books and movies and TV. But nobody I knew, was involved in any of that. That was a whole different world,
Right.
and not one close to us. So I sort of, because my dad was a plumber, and he decided early on I would be a terrible plumber. So he's encouraged me to keep reading and maybe try an academic side of things, try and get a job at a desk, maybe. So I managed to sort of, wangle my way into a law degree, and or fell into it. And again, it's quite amazing that I got through all of that. And then, but I liked reading, and my mom encouraged me to write. So I wrote screenplays when I was like 18 or 19. Didn't get any of them sold, and then stopped writing. And then I didn't do anything until I was in my mid 30s. My mom passed away, and
Hmm.
I thought, well, I wonder, is there something I could do? She was the only person who ever encouraged me to write. So I thought maybe I could try and write a book this time.
Huh.
Screenplays seemed easier to me before because it's only like 100 pages.
Right. It's
And I
all
thought I could
dialogue
do
for the most
that.
part.
Yeah, that's not a huge amount. I could maybe do that. So, but then I thought I tried to write a book. So I wrote a book for her, basically a book that I thought she would like, and that managed to get it published. And then that started me off in this career. So I was never, I didn't tell anyone I was writing a book.
Right. Of course
Um,
not. Why would you?
uh,
It's embarrassing.
why would I? Because they would go, "What? You couldn't write a book."
Why are you wasting your
Um,
time?
exactly. So, but then when I did tell people I wrote a book and they read it, they went, "Actually, this is quite good."
Right.
So then they were surprised. So that gave me little bits of encouragement are good when you're starting off. I think that always helps.
But there's a few fascinating bits in all of that, right? So first of all, writing a screenplay when you're 18 or 19 in
Mhm.
Northern Ireland, knowing that not only is it almost impossible to get a screenplay acquired, but
Yes.
it really helps to be, in Southern California as well, to be in that kind
Yes.
of position or have gone to film school or whatever. So it's just amazing that your brain went straight to like, let's try a screenplay just because it's less description that I have to write.
Exactly. It was less, seemed like less work, you
It was,
know,
yeah,
and I'd watched so many bad films. I thought I could write one of those bad movies and, make a load of money. So I did.
yeah.
I wrote bad movies, and
But it's
they
still
were
training,
weren't
right?
good.
Because you're
It's
you're
still
learning,
training.
like
It's
you're
still
learning
Tory. Yeah,
dialogue, if nothing else. You're learning human interaction in a way that's compelling and hopefully realistic.
exactly. I learned a few things from screenwriting, which I took over when I started writing books, like get into a scene late and get out early.
Yeah,
I think is a great little bit of advice, which still, serves me well even today. Because I
right.
tend to think of chapters like scenes almost, because
Totally.
most of my
And
chapters
it's
are
about
quite short.
trusting the reader. The reader gets it. The reader
Yeah,
doesn't have to have
exactly.
everything spelled out for them.
No, no, of course not. And that's the thing with lawyers. Lawyers like process. And they're like, spelling out exactly how, and this is what I've seen in a few lawyers who have written stuff. They wanted, they lay out, this is exactly how this building works. This is how the court works. This is how a trial works. This is how a motion or an application works. And this is what's happening. And it's all really boring, really.
Right.
Um, thank God I was never a very good technical lawyer. I was more about arguments and catching people out in a lie and the sort of the more psychological aspects of law I was
Sure.
better at.
Interesting.
So that helps me out, and I don't write a lot of legal procedure because I don't know a lot of legal procedure.
And it's, that's been done so much.
Yeah, exactly. And the people do it better than me, so I can't do that.
So at what point, you wrote this first book. Yeah, I think you said you were in your 30s. You were still working as a lawyer at
Yeah,
this point, I assume.
I was. Yeah, I was a civil
Um,
rights and criminal lawyer.
okay. So I mean, it's interesting. My daughter's in law school. That's why I'm kind of pursuing that a little
Oh,
bit.
is she? Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, although everyone's like, don't tell her to quit. Tell her to like but she enjoys it so far. I mean, she's still in school. Um,
Right.
but so then you write this book, and what's very rare, as I'm sure you're quite aware, is selling your first book. It's it's
Yeah.
it's nearly impossible to sell any book, much less the very first novel that you've written. So you write this book that you, I assume, perceive as, I guess, crime thriller,
Yeah.
dark. And you has it worked the same way in Northern Ireland where you're looking for representation before you go to a publisher?
Yeah. So I wanted to get a literary agent. So I wrote the book and then I tried to get an agent. And that was the hard part for me, getting an agent. So it took me about 6 or 8 months to get an agent.
That's
And I
that
think,
which is a blink of an eye for most people.
yeah, so I've been led
Yeah,
to believe, but I think I was applying to like the wrong people. I think that's what it was. I wasn't trying any of the big agencies in London or the big agencies in the US.
hmm,
I was going to little small agencies, who I thought, because I didn't think any of the big ones would be interested in me at all. This is a pattern which repeats in me. I'm constantly thinking that I'm the total underdog here.
well, that's the writer's
And
brain right there.
that's my brain exactly. So, and the books was, it was widely rejected. I even got a rejection from an agent that I'd met who had been at like an event thing in Northern Ireland, which was very unusual. And they read it and said, "Well, look, I think you can write, but this book will never be published."
What did
And
they
I
say?
was
Why?
devastated. They said it's not good enough, and it's not going to work. And what you're
Huh.
doing here is no good. And I was thinking, well, I really trust this person, and this is awful. And then a month prior to that, I thought, why don't I just try the bigger agencies? Why not? But I can't lose anything. So I'd sent off like half a dozen applications. And 3 days after the agent had sent me that email, I had offers from two of the biggest agencies in London.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, nobody knows anything in this business. So I worked with the agent. I sort of tidied up the book a little bit. It didn't need masses of work. just a little bit of a tidy up, and then sent it out. And then there was an auction, and I got a 3 book deal
Amazing.
for this character, the Eddie Flynn. So I thought that's great. I've got 3 chances to learn how to write a book. And that was kind of those 3 books are kind of, I sort of think of them as like apprentice books. They
Yeah,
all did, they were quite well received, but I became, by the time I'd finished those 3 books, I became a much better writer.
for me, it was my 3 books that were agented but never sold. And everyone
Right.
says like, did you go back to them? And I'm like, no, they were my apprentice book. They were my MFA. This is how I learned to write, because you and I are similar in the sense of we're not coming at this with this background of training or even an understanding of this is what we wanted to do. It kind of came to us. Whereas you didn't have the prolonged period of massive insecurity and self-doubt, because at least you got picked up fairly quickly. um I went through this stage where I'm like, I don't know if having an agent was the one thing I needed to have some kind of like, you don't suck kind of
Yes,
atmosphere. Somebody who I didn't know who was taking a chance on me, that's what I needed. But there's a lot of people out there, like, they just get rejection after rejection. They might be great writers, but you have no context because nobody's giving you that feedback. That even that one thing with you, the rejection saying you can write, but the story doesn't work. Hearing that you can write from a would-be agent is a huge shot in the arm, I think.
it is. Yeah, exactly. That really helped. And along the way, you will get some requests. And if you get a request for a full manuscript, that's a little victory. Even if it doesn't turn into anything,
Right.
that's a little victory. But more and more, I think writers, you really have to do your research. You really have to get a good agent. If you can, someone who is, very well respected and is good, good experiences and good reputation, and among publishers, and sells books.
Yeah.
It's not just lots, because a bad agent can make you go nowhere.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
but
Which is a
agents are
hard thing to
important.
do, right? Because people do get
Yeah,
offered representation, and it's very hard after years of trying and waiting to think about saying no to an offer. But
yeah,
sometimes you have to do that.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, no, I was lucky. I got a start, and things, went on from there. So the first 3 books were all nominated for awards, and some won awards. But the problem was nobody bought the books. That was a difficulty. And then I they were all books in a series. I read a series called Eddie Flynn, about a former con artist who's now a trial lawyer in New York. And my 4th book. I wrote a book called 13,
Yeah.
which is about a serial killer on a jury. And again, nobody expected that book to do anything really. And
That was your first
it
standalone?
no, that's still in the series.
Okay.
And that's the way I've sort of been. This is good. I'm glad you brought that up. I've kind of been writing a series in secret because I came into publishing at a time, and I learned very quickly that publishers love a series because
Yeah.
you've already made audience. If someone buys one book and they like it, they're going to buy the next one.
Right.
And that's like, that's what they all want. Every publisher wants a successful series, like Michael Connolly or John Connolly or Lee Child, or any of these great writers, or, Karen Slaughter or whatever. They all want this returning character. But the audience didn't really want it at that time, because just before I got published, and then continuing in my first few years, it was all big standalone psychological thrillers that were taking off, like The Girl on the Train, Before I Go to Sleep, and stuff.
Right.
These were the big hits, and people wanted that. So the publisher didn't, and still to this day really don't, put this is a series on the books. But we have, with that book 13, I asked them to put the tagline on the cover: "The serial killer isn't on trial; he's on the jury." And people saw that and went, "Oh wow,
Yeah.
that
That's the
that
high
sounds like
concept
people."
pitch right there. No,
That's the high concept pitch, and they picked it up. Didn't know, not knowing there's 3 books before that. I mean, they didn't need to read the 3 books before that. I sort of learned from writers that I admire, and I'm a huge admirer of Lee Child. I mean, the
Yeah.
Reacher series is one of the best series of books, in the last 50 years, easily. But you don't need to read them in order. You can just pick whatever one up you want.
Right.
They all work as complete standalone. So there's a gateway into the series anywhere. And I wanted to do that. So so 13 came out and to no great, fanfare. But booksellers, particularly in Waterstones in the UK, loved it. And initially, they didn't think the order for the whole country was 250 copies for all stores. But they very quickly sold out. Like in the morning of the first pay of publication day, they had another order in, and then they kept reordering. And 6, 7 weeks after it was published, it hit the bestseller list in the Saturday Times, which is just what's selling in Waterstones. It's the Waterstones bestseller list. And it was a paperback original, and that's the first time I saw my name in a paper on a bestseller list. Not the Sunday Times bestseller list, which is overall what has sold the most that week. This is just what's selling in Waterstones. But it just the word of mouth just built for that book from the bookseller. So it was all happened quite organically, and that helped me out, and the thing grew from there.
And that's what's amazing too, is because most people think, and it's true in many cases, is that, the publisher is doing a lot to get it on the list in those first couple
Yeah,
weeks, because that's usually when it's going to hit, if it's going to hit. But
yeah,
one thing I've learned in 20 plus years of doing this is nothing sells like word of mouth. And
exactly.
with my breakout, it didn't hit the Times list, but it just sold consistently week after week without really dropping. And you just realize like people are talking about this book. It's not doing 20,000 units in one week, but it's doing thousands consistently week after week. And that's, I mean, that's what you
That's
want.
what you want. That's what you want. You want the long tail,
Yeah, you want the long
and
tail. And
that's yeah. And I'm lucky to have that with a few of my books. But it's weird because I think the UK and the US industries different because in America there are certain things that publishers do differently, which UK publishers don't do. Yes, throwing a lot of money and advertising on a book helps and building that buzz, but they all build it very differently. And if you're lucky to get a book on Reese's book club or some book club in America, that can really, a TV book club
sure,
that can really blow you up and give you that chance. So it's about, but a lot of it, I think, is about being lucky. I think,
totally. I mean,
you
you
know,
can't control if Reese picks your book or
you
not.
can't control it. No, you can't control it at all. But those little things give you a boost, and it's
Oh,
nice to have a little boost every now and again. But I'm very happy with word of mouth and readers recommending the books because that's gold for me.
yeah. I mean, it's the difference between being mid-list and breakout is kind of that inciting incident for your books. For me, it was getting selected by Barnes and Noble for a monthly pick.
Great.
And then all of a sudden you're in front of a bunch of people who then, if they like it, will talk about it. I
Yes.
mean, you still have to write a book that people are going to want to talk about. It's just how do I
Yes.
get to that level where enough people see it to start the conversation? And that's what you kind of can't control. And you just learn and you just keep writing as the best that you can, and then you forget about it and you move on to the next one.
Exactly. That's all you can do.
And it's a long journey.
Oh
um,
yeah, big time.
so did you resign your job as being a lawyer because of your ability to sell books?
Yeah. No, I resigned in my job as a lawyer because my wife told me to. Um, but yes, that was the main reason. So that book 13 came out and did very well, and I had published a standalone book after that called Twisted, because at the time there didn't seem to be any great desire for another Eddie Flynn book before 13 came out. And I thought I can't write a better Eddie Flynn book than that one at the moment. I'll try and branch out a bit and write a standalone book. To show that I'm not a one trick pony, that I
Hmm.
can't just write this series, I can write something else. And I'm really glad I did that because it helped, learn writing something slightly new and a slightly different genre. I mean, to me, they're all the books are suspense thrillers, but that really helped. And it helped, grow me as a writer, and I learned new skills, which then I brought back to the series when I wrote about it again. So doing standalone books as well as a series is something that I've continued to do, and I'll do
Yeah.
the odd stuff. I've done two standalones now, and I'm writing a third at the moment. So that helps. And again, I'm learning from people who are, much wiser and much more talented than me. Like Michael Connolly published a number of fantastic Harry Bosch novels, but the poet was the one that broke out for him,
Yeah.
in different markets, and that was a standalone. And
Yeah.
people like that and said, "Oh, there's other books by this author. I'll read those too." And again, all of that helps. Same with the Lincoln Lawyer.
Yeah. And it's interesting because so I've only ever written standalone. My 11th comes out this year, and I've had a couple
Right.
that have had some crossover, but that's more just for my amusement rather than a real series because my experience at the beginning of publishing was a little bit different than yours in the sense that people, I mean, I wasn't pitching a series.
Yeah.
But what I was kind of told was publishers are wary of series for new authors because if that first one doesn't do anything, now they're stuck with a contract for two more. So I'm like, okay, so I'll just write standalone. So that's all I've ever done. But I've also noticed that I love I love it because I love like where are we going to go? Who's this person going to be? What's the situation? Which you can kind of do with the series as well. Um,
Yeah.
but
But that they see there's something else in that publishers are, just like everyone else in this business, they don't know anything. I'll say that, including, every publisher I've ever worked with, they
right.
don't know anything, and they don't learn. We know what's happening at the moment, and they want to publish books like that. So, for example, there was a book that came out. Oh God, what do you call it? It was a huge, big New York Times bestseller about a girl who was raised in the woods by a serial killer, and then,
Hmm,
raised in a swamp somewhere, and then came out, emerged from the swamp. It was like a TV series and all made.
hmm.
And it sold amazing. And then every publisher across the world is, well, where's my book about a girl who was raised in a swamp by a serial killer? And then there was loads of them. There was like after 3 years, there was like 6 or 7 of these books. All these women raised in swamps by serial killers. Um, and
Somehow I
I'm
didn't
not
read any of them.
degrading any of those books at all. They were all out in submission, all rejected before
Right,
one hit.
right, right.
But the thing is, what used to happen in publishing is you publish your book, and then it did okay, didn't do so great. And now a lot of publishers are throwing spaghetti at a wall.
Yeah,
Let's throw all this up and see what sticks. But all the authors that I know and that that are, in our genre, who are the huge big bestsellers, very few of them hit with the first book. It
very
was the
few.
fifth book or the 10th
It
book
was
or the
my 10th
eighth
book.
book. There you go. So, and this is series, you know, growing a series and building a readership, slowly is what they used to do. And they don't do it anymore
Yeah.
because, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, because there's very few new series that I can think of coming through in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So you have to give it time and the
Yeah.
right and give authors time, because authors get better.
Right. Well,
They're
that's
always
a great point
pursuing this thing.
because, I think your comment about publishers not knowing anything is is well founded. But I think the difference is between publishers, and this is kind of speculation, although I've been with a few different ones, they might not know what's going to work, but they'll know that they have to make a decision whether or not to nurture an author or just chase that shiny thing. And if it doesn't work out, then
Yeah,
they eject you. I'm with a publisher who's just like, hey, we're happy with people being mid-list if we see that, to your point, the author's getting better. They're willing to do stuff. They're
yeah,
honing their craft because you can sell 5,000 copies of a book and still be okay. You're not necessarily losing money for a publisher and they can hold you on so they can start selling 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 copies down the road if they see that in you. But some publishers, I think, again, they're just going for the girl in the swamp. And if that doesn't work, then they go on to the next thing. And then you never really
exactly.
develop as an author. You're just bouncing around.
And I listen, I don't blame them. Oh, they're all very smart people and they're all thinking with the bottom line, we got to make money and what's going to make money now. But I think there has to be a certain aspect of, holding it back because they don't know what works or what makes a bestseller either. My editor at Atreus, Sean Delone, is an incredibly smart guy and writes a very good Substack called Dear Head of Mine. So if you ever want to read,
Hmm.
the ramblings and very considered and intelligent thoughts of an editor at a big five publishing house, read Sean's Substack.
Hmm.
But he's great in that he'll very rattly say, "We didn't know this book was going to take off and do, nobody saw this coming." And
Right.
anyone he says they saw this particular book, whatever it was, coming and was going to, nobody knew. Word of mouth is what builds it. And sometimes you can get a sniff of that and sometimes not, you know. Like Dan Brown, is one of he's the number two best-selling author in the world for the last 50 years.
It's amazing.
And the Da Vinci Code was rejected by quite a few publishers.
Right.
We had the opportunity to snap that up, and they didn't. And they had their own reasons for it. And that went. I can remember that book. That was used to anywhere you stayed. If I would go and stay in a someone's house or in a hotel or an Airbnb or something like that, you would see that book everywhere. Everyone had that book and was reading that book. But sometimes publishers they can't see it coming.
Yeah, Gone Girl's the same way. Like,
Yeah,
Gillian Flynn had a couple excellent books before that, but nothing major. And then that one just took off. And it wasn't because I don't think that they all of a sudden decided to inject a lot of money into that campaign, maybe more so than her previous two, but totally disproportionate with that how it sold. So yeah, you just don't know what's going to resonate.
you don't know.
And I
And
think
I
it,
think like a lot of it comes down with you talking to your publisher and having really good community. I'm very firmly of the mind that good communication is vital. They have to know what your plan is, and you got to know what their plan is, and everyone has to have the same plan, hopefully. And it's as basic as that. But when that doesn't happen, that's when you can have little problems. And I know a lot of writers, but so I think that's key. Good communication is the foundation to it all.
so when you say plan, do you mean in terms of what you're planning to write or the actual launch of the book?
I'm talking about a long-term strategy.
Oh, I see.
I'm talking about what are we going to do here? This is what I do, and are you happy with what I do? Um, and how are we going to grow this? And what kind of conversation we're going to have around this? And are you happy with what I'm doing? I long-term strategies are great, and that's the only kind of conversation I can have because quite often I don't know what book I'm going to deliver until I've delivered it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
publisher might occasionally call me and say, "So this book is it?" I say it's an Eddie Flynn or it's a standalone, and here's two sentences about what it's about roughly.
Right. Right.
Look, oh, that sounds great. They'll trust me enough, um, so I can't write an outline. I don't
I'm the
write a
exact same
synopsis.
way.
I can't do it. So they trust me enough to go, well, we'll have four more Steve's books, and
Yeah.
whatever it is, they might want a standalone, they might want more series. And I'll say, well, I'm continuing to write. I write a few Eddie Flynn's and then I write a standalone, and this is what I do, and everyone's very happy with that. So I'm lucky in that way.
Well, I don't even know if it's luck. It's they know because that's a major part of the game is being somebody you can work with, which is the true
Yeah,
wherever you're working in the world. Because I'm the same way. Like I even if I give them two paragraphs on what the book is about, that second paragraph is inevitably going to be totally different than what I actually end up
yeah,
writing. And but they not only do they trust me to deliver a good book, but also to know that I'm willing to invest months of editing when they say, "Yeah, but this part doesn't work for me and can you do this?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's make it better because I'm not perfect. I don't, I need
no,
that
nobody
I
is.
I need that input." And they
Yeah,
know that I'll put in the hard work to do that. But you have to have some kind of history with them for them to get to that point because I mean, the words long term and publishing, you don't usually
I
hear
know,
together because a lot of them like,
I
we
know.
don't know if we want you for more than two more books because we don't know what the market's going to do, what you're going to do, whatever.
Exactly. And that's very hard for them to plan ahead. And it's very hard for you to plan ahead.
Right.
And I think the smartest publishers recognize, okay, we've got a few, shoots growing here and there. Let's stick with that.
Right.
Because when you're starting off, they're not paying you $1 million for a book. You know, they're paying a small amount, and usually, a mid-list author or whatever, you'll usually they're making money on your books. They're not making a fortune, but they're
No,
not really
but
losing a
that's why
lot
they
of
have a
money.
lot of authors.
Exactly. And it only takes, a bit of luck or something like this, and someone comes out with a brilliant idea or a great execution, and that book gets a lift. And that's great. It's because I think if you're starting off in this business, you read these stories in Publishers Weekly or the bookseller about someone got $1 million deal. And sometimes those books work great and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd rather grow,
Me
um, you
too.
know,
Me too. And then you do have a bigger book, and then they start to invest more into the next one. And
yes,
that still might not do as well, but it'll do better than your mid-list ones, probably. But
exactly.
isn't it a weird thing when you think about publishing? Because, and I've told this story on the podcast before, like you're this integral part of their business model, but you're this contractor who you rarely communicate with them. I mean, you communicate, but it's not like you're having daily meetings with them.
No,
And you don't know what their plan is. And you are being talked about all the time in conversations that don't include you. And I reached
yes,
out to my editor once and I just said, can I get an employee review? Because if I were in the corporate world, which I used to be in, I'd get reviewed once a year so I know at least what you think of me and what you're thinking about for my career. And so I called a meeting. I'm like, just tell me what you think of me. Tell me what you think of, because unless you do that, it's not going to happen. Because even though you're this important part of the equation, you're not, you're just not talking to them all that often. So you're still kind of lost in space a bit.
yeah, I totally agree. What I would have said though is, and here's a slight difference, is I would have said to them, well, look, let's do my review first, then we'll do your review.
Right, right. A 360 review.
Because at the end of the day, it takes two. I write the
Right,
book, but you got to sell it.
right.
So let's, and I'm very lucky in that a lot of the publishers I work with, I get a lot of emails saying, tell us about what you think we're doing right and tell us what you think we're doing wrong, or what can we do better and how's your experience?
Wow.
And I
That's
get those a
great.
lot. And that's hugely helpful. And because usually everything goes great. And I'm very lucky in the two editors I have now. We work fantastically together. We all come together sometimes in Zoom calls and bounce ideas off, or usually for titles because I'm terrible at titles. But we work collaboratively together on everything, on covers, on what are we going to do for marketing, and what am I going to do, and what are you going to do, and my agent then will handle the business side of things. But I like being creatively involved in the publishing process, especially the covers. I think that's essential.
Yeah.
As someone who's had terrible covers,
Mhm.
um, I really get involved now in it, and I enjoy doing it, and I
Yeah.
think everyone enjoys doing it.
I agree. I love the creative process as well. And then also, as long as as authors, we're understanding our own limitations and respecting other people's core business. So if I have a design team showing me covers and I'm pushing back on it, which I have all the right to do, I'm also understanding they do this for a living, you know.
Oh yeah,
So I have to understand so I love it when they come to me and say, this is why this cover. Here are the elements, here are the comps, here's the marketing strategy. I love that as opposed to just like, this is what we were thinking. And you don't really understand why that. Um, I think
exactly.
that, I
But
think,
it's not just one cover. What you really want to do is building a brand.
yeah, totally.
Even in your standalones,
Yep. Oh, I've
you
had
want
covers gone
someone.
back and they've
Yeah,
changed them,
yeah,
5 books ago. We're changing this cover. So it's all part
exactly.
of the look and feel. And titles are the same way like that. Like I might have titles that I feel maybe are a little clumsy, but they're part of the brand. Like it's important,
Yeah,
for example, we have pronouns in my covers or titles or whatever it is. There has to be like, oh, that's a Carter Wilson book. That's a Steve Cavanagh book.
right.
That totally has the look and feel of it before I even open it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For us, it's really we kind of got it down now. So we got the title and the tagline working together and the image working together. So we get all of those three things look working as one thing, as one single package to sell a single idea to or a concept to a reader.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
if we get all of those three, and it's very hard to get all of those three right. But if we do, then it's great. And I'm
Totally.
very lucky with the designers, and creative people I'm working with. And obviously, a lot of times they do know more than me.
Right.
But we all defer to my wife, who knows everything and can spot a terrible cover or a terrible, title from me a mile away.
Right. So as long as
So
you stay together, your career is going to be solid.
my career's going. Yeah.
Well, Steve, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to do a quick storytelling of our own. This is the making it up portion of the show. I've got three books here that I pulled randomly from my bookshelf. We're going to choose a book. We're going to choose a random sentence from a random page. I'm going to read that sentence, and that'll be the first sentence in like a 2 minute long short story. So I'll read that sentence. You give me the next sentence. I'll do one. It'll go off the rails, and then I'll call it when it's completely terrible. It usually gets pretty dark pretty fast too. So don't don't don't
Okay.
don't worry about holding back. I've got Julie Compton's "Tell No Lies," Todd Goldberg's "Only Way Out," and Harlan Coben's "The Woods," which I don't think is
Okay.
about a girl raised in the woods by a serial killer, but it might be.
No, it's not. I think that's about kids going to the woods and only one comes out. I think.
Got it.
Well, let's go with Harlan.
Okay, so give me a page between 1 and 400.
Is he bang on 400 pages?
This one, yeah.
Wow. Um, I would say let's go for page 123.
Okay, I'm going to quickly look at page 123, and it's almost all dialogue. Oh, all right.
Dialogue can work okay as well. Don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. So I have no idea who's saying this or the context, and you can do whatever you want with it. It's just one piece of dialogue. Did they try to hide their faces?
Ooh. That should be the opening line of that book.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great line. And I have to give you the next line after
Whatever.
that.
Yep, yep. Whatever you want.
No, they wanted me to know exactly who was doing this.
I barely got the words out as the memories of those specific faces brought a well of nausea through my gut. The beards, the nose rings, the engravings on their foreheads.
What are you going to do now?
I asked the man in front of me. He looked like he had something very specific in mind. He looked like he had dealt with people, victims like me before, but his answer didn't give me any comfort.
What can I do? It's already happened.
I looked down at my feet, my scraped, bloody toes, the rips in my jeans. And I thought, if I have to do something, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if I'm strong enough. And I don't even know where to start.
The man seemed to sense exactly what I was feeling, and he said, "You better sit this one out. Leave it to me."
And it was at that moment I realized if I were a character in a novel and I sat this out, this is where the readers would throw the book against the wall. They would scream, she has to have agency. She has to do something. So I swallowed hard, looked at the man, and said, all I need to do is borrow a gun. I think we
That's a
call it
good.
there.
That's a call it. Yeah, excellent.
That was fun.
That was, it got dark very quickly.
Yes, it always does. I mean, that's who we are, man.
You're the common denominator here,
I
Carter. I have
am.
to say.
I am. The funny thing is when somebody tries to go light, I start to freeze. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Hey man, it was good to see you. I think we met briefly at Hamptons who done it, but I appreciate you being on the podcast, and I hope to catch you in person next time you're in the States.
Absolutely, yeah, it would be great to catch up. I don't get to the States often. Sometimes by your
Good for
con, I've
you.
been once. I've never been to Thriller Fest. Well, people tell me to
Oh,
go, but I've never been.
that's not too far of a trip for you. So maybe next
Yeah, New
year.
York,
Uh,
maybe next year. But yeah, no pleasure.
All
Enjoyed
right,
it.
man. We'll talk soon. I really appreciate it. Take
Thanks,
care.
Carter, and apologies to Harlan Coben.
I think he's a little proud. All right, talk to you later, man.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, that is it. That is my conversation with Steve Cavanagh. That was a good one. I could have talked to him a lot longer. It felt like we were just chatting. Whatever came to mind, all of a sudden I looked down and about 45 minutes had gone by, and I'm like, wow, this just flew by. I love those kind of conversations. You can check out all of his books and everything that he's up to at his website, which is stevecavanaghauthor.com. And you can check out my books, my upcoming book, When They Find Me. It's available for pre-order now. You can get it anywhere where you get your books, but go to my website, carterwilson.com, and you can see all those links to buy it there. And if you're interested in writing coaching or our Unbound Writer Paris Writing Retreat in 2027, just head on over to unboundwriter.com. All right, that is it. That is it for this episode of Making It Up. Another one out soon. Friends, I always appreciate you watching or listening to this. If you're enjoying this show, drop me a line at me@carterwilson.com and let me know. Or if there's a guest that you want to see on here, I can try to chase them down. All right, that is it. In the meantime, until next week, take care.